face the mental pain and anguish that I had been dealing with since January, which I didn't want to admit. And so the hardest part was really working with Kira in neuropsych. And even when they told me I had an appointment with her, I started to cry. And I didn't want to face that. But it's been very helpful in learning new strategies. So in the waiting, I had to face pain. But I also had joy in the waiting. Like seeing my husband for the first time after 2 weeks, and even facing this fear that I had that he wasn't going to love me because I couldn't use my left side. Although one thing he said to me is, hey, I didn't marry your left side. Like, it's okay. And so that was a joyful moment. And then also getting to see my dad at MD Anderson. Like, even though I was in a wheelchair and I hated it, it was just a sweet moment of seeing my dad. And it was really hard to get in the car. And although that was hard, it was joyful to see him. And then something else that happened in the waiting is that this girl, who's a nurse at MD Anderson, she just started talking to me. And she said, hey, I just have to tell you that your faith is really encouraging me. And I hadn't even said anything, I don't think. Like, I talk about Jesus all the time, but I think I was probably making random sentences at that point because it was right after surgery. But even that, like, seeing how God was faithful to show up in that. And then just acting silly with my mom has been a joy, and she's been so amazing. And we were riding around on a wheelchair with our corona masks on. And in the waiting, I've learned to celebrate the small victories. And although it might not seem like much to the average person, if you've gone through anything like this, taking a step is really hard. And also, pooping is something we have to celebrate. And just looking at the small victories that we've had and not necessarily waiting for it to be this giant thing like I talked about at the beginning, but looking at like taking one foot in front of the other, that helps us to really stay focused and celebrate the small victories. So the takeaways from this, I'm actually taking from my pastor who just did a sermon on this over the weekend, is that in your waiting, you have to learn to work your weight. You have to rise to the occasion, and you have to know that it won't be easy. And all of this perfectly describes what I've been going through. And you can't get comfortable. And here at TIRR, every day I was stretched to do something new and hard. And although I didn't think I had the strength to do it, God was faithful to show up every time and to give me that strength. And you have to worship your way through the waiting. And that's what you see consistently in the Bible. Like when David was given the anointing to become king, he didn't become king immediately. He became king in 15 years. And he had to spend time out in the pasture. And he was constantly worshiping and encouraging himself in the Lord. And that's what I've been doing with my girl Megan. And we just worship down the hallway. And that has also helped me really find a place of gratitude. And instead of taking a stand to say, I'm not going to do this or that, you have to take a step and really step forward and walk out your weight. Because if I just did nothing and left MD Anderson and went home, I wouldn't have regained what I've gotten here at TIRR, which is full mobility on my left side, which is a miracle. And the only way that I can explain that is Jesus. So we have to walk out our weight and not give up, even though there's a lot of challenges. And in the waiting, warriors are made. Mm-hmm. So I can now say that I am a warrior and more than a conqueror in Jesus. And so that is something that I've learned in the waiting. And all of it has been really hard, but even the miracles that I saw in the beginning in 2011, I've seen them consistently through the whole process. And I've been grateful. Even today, like I went running. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought? And the PT said to me, I don't normally get to this point with patients here. And I was grateful for that, because what God told me in 2011 was Ephesians 3:19, that he's able to do exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ever ask or imagine. And that's what I feel like happened today. And this is the last day here at TIRR. And of course he would do that because he loves to show off. And even though it's been like a hard time and I would never have chosen this for myself, the counselor and I were talking, and I got a bracelet in February for my birthday, and it says brave. And the letter that came with it, it said, I feel because it was a prophetic word. And the letter that they wrote explaining it said that I feel the tenderness and the pride of Jesus over you. And he sees you as incredibly brave. And everything that you've gone through in your life has brought you to the point where you're supposed to be right here, right now. And he sees you as incredibly faithful. And although there were days when I would just want to lay on the floor and not talk to anyone, I now see that I learned faithfulness in a new level, and not giving up is being faithful. And the counselor said to me, well, if you're brave, it's because there had to have been some fear that you faced. And I didn't even realize that, but I now see that, and so I can say that I am a warrior and I am brave. So now, for those in the room, I have a question and answer section. I wondered if anyone had any